It had been just over 15 months since the guns went silent on Lebanon's southern border. 15 months since Israel and Hezbollah agreed to a ceasefire that was supposed to end more than a year of devastating warfare, a war that had killed thousands, flattened entire neighborhoods, and pushed Lebanon to the very edge of collapse. For 15 months, the people of northern Israel and southern Lebanon had lived under an uneasy and imperfect quiet. Children had returned to schools near the border. Displaced families had begun to trickle back to their damaged homes. There was no peace exactly, but there was the absence of rockets in the sky. And sometimes, in a region like this, that is the best you can hope for. That quiet ended in the early hours of Monday, March 2nd, 2026. Just before midnight, Lebanese time on Sunday, March 1st, sirens began screaming across northern Israel. Haifa, the Upper Galilee, communities along the Lebanese border, all of them suddenly lit up with the terrifying wail of incoming rocket warnings. People ran for shelters. The Israeli military's Iron Dome and other air defense systems activated instantly. Israeli sources reported projectiles being launched from within Lebanon toward Israeli territory in the early hours of March 2nd, setting off sirens across Haifa and the Upper Galilee. The IDF said that it intercepted a rocket while others hit open areas. There were no immediate reports of casualties from the rocket fire itself, but the damage was not the point. The message was. Within minutes, Hezbollah released a statement claiming full responsibility for the attack. The group said it fired in retaliation for the killing of Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who had been killed 2 days earlier in the opening wave of a joint United States and Israeli airstrike campaign on Iran. The rocket attack was described as revenge for the blood of the Supreme Leader of the Muslims, Ali Khamenei, according to Hezbollah. It was the first time since the November 2024 ceasefire that Hezbollah had fired at Israel and claimed it openly. It was a declaration, loud and deliberate, that the group was now entering the war. Israel did not wait long to respond. Israel launched a barrage of strikes on Lebanon's capital, Beirut, after the Lebanese militant group fired missiles across the border. The IDF spokesperson confirmed that strikes were being carried out against Hezbollah targets across Lebanon, including in Beirut's southern suburbs. At the same time, the IDF struck a key operative of the Hezbollah terrorist organization in southern Lebanon. The Israeli military said it had struck senior Hezbollah operatives in the Beirut area and that it would not allow the organization to pose a threat to Israeli citizens in the north. In a statement that signaled Israel had been preparing for exactly this moment, the IDF said its forces were operating within the framework of Operation Roaring Lion and were ready for a multi-front conflict. To understand how the region arrived at this explosive moment, you have to go back several weeks, even months. The seeds of what is now unfolding were planted long before the first missile struck Tehran on the morning of February 28th. Tensions between Iran and the United States and Israel had been building steadily since the October 7, 2023 attacks on Israel and the onset of the Gaza war. Israel had systematically weakened Iranian-backed militias across the Middle East, including Hamas in Gaza and Hezbollah in Lebanon. Israel and Iran had exchanged direct strikes in April and October 2024 and were engaged in a brief war in 2025 that included an American airstrike aimed at destroying Iran's nuclear facilities. Each exchange raised the stakes. Each strike was followed by retaliation, and each retaliation was followed by a new strike. The region was caught in an escalating spiral that was becoming harder and harder to stop. Beginning in late December 2025, massive nationwide anti-government protests erupted in Iran, driven largely by economic crisis, the collapse of the rial, and rising prices. The protests, which included calls for regime change, became the largest in scale since the 1979 revolution, spreading to over 100 cities across the country. Thousands of Iranians were killed in the crackdown that followed. The international community watched in horror, and pressure on Washington to act grew louder. Meanwhile, the Israeli military in recent weeks had been stepping up airstrikes against Hezbollah in Lebanon, with assessments indicating that the Iran-backed group might join Tehran in a new conflict against Israel. The strikes were deliberate and calculated, not random acts of aggression, but a strategic effort to degrade Hezbollah's military capabilities before a larger confrontation erupted. On Friday night, February 21st, strikes carried out by the Israeli Air Force targeted 3 Hezbollah command centers belonging to the terror group's missile force in eastern Lebanon's Bekaa Valley, killing 8 operatives, including a top commander. Hezbollah confirmed the deaths, including that of a senior officer named Hussein Mohammed Yagi. It was one of the deadliest Israeli strikes on Hezbollah since the ceasefire began. For many observers, Netanyahu's government had decided to intensify the aggression on Lebanon in a bid to exert further pressure on the Lebanese state. retreat so that the latter would restrain Hezbollah from supporting Iran should the United States and Israel launch a new offensive on the Islamic Republic. The strategy, in other words, was to hit Hezbollah hard enough before the main war started that the group would think twice about joining it. Then came February 28th. In the pre-dawn hours of Saturday morning, the United States and Israel launched a massive coordinated airstrike campaign against Iran, hitting 24 provinces simultaneously. Khamenei was killed in his office. Iran's military command structure was targeted. The IRGC's headquarters was reportedly destroyed. The region woke up to a completely different world. According to Israeli assessments, Iran had been pressuring Hezbollah to fight alongside it in the event of a war with Israel. During a 12-day war with Iran in June, Hezbollah's Secretary General, Naim Qassem, had received several requests from Iran to join the conflict but had declined. This time, with Khamenei dead and Iran under a sustained assault, the calculation inside Hezbollah's leadership changed. The killing of their patron and spiritual guide was not something they could absorb silently. Hezbollah had been weakened by the 2024 war, which saw Israel kill most of the group's military and political leaders, and it was not clear how much damage it could inflict on Israel or whether its intervention could meaningfully alter the balance of power for Iran. But the group chose symbolism and solidarity over strategic caution. In a statement, Hezbollah pledged to continue its jihad and resistance and to stand firmly and steadfastly alongside the Islamic Republic to defeat the arrogant and tyrannical aggressors until the final and complete victory is achieved. The language was defiant. The rockets that followed were real. The Lebanese government reacted with alarm. Lebanese Prime Minister Nawaf Salam condemned the launching of rockets as reckless after Hezbollah claimed responsibility. Lebanon's President Joseph Aoun warned that the country must not be drawn into regional proxy conflicts. But the Lebanese government's ability to control Hezbollah has always been limited, a painful fact of Lebanese political life for decades. Hezbollah operates independently from the Lebanese government. It answers not to Beirut, but to Tehran. And with Tehran now fighting for its survival, the orders coming down from Iran's battered leadership were clear. Israel has continued to carry out attacks in Lebanon despite the November 2024 ceasefire. More than 300 people have been killed since then, including 127 civilians, according to the United Nations. Hezbollah had watched Israel strike Lebanese territory nearly every day for over a year without responding directly, urging the Lebanese government to take the issue to international bodies instead. The Lebanese authorities had been pleading with the international community to pressure Israel to end its violations to no avail. In January, Beirut filed a complaint with the United Nations documenting over 2,000 Israeli violations of Lebanese sovereignty in the final 3 months of 2025 alone. That restraint, that long and painful silence, is now officially over. The scale of what Israel launched in response to Hezbollah's rocket fire was significant and swift. The Israeli army said it precisely struck senior Hezbollah terrorists in the area of Beirut, as well as a central Hezbollah operative in southern Lebanon. Evacuation notices were issued urgently to residents of dozens of villages across southern Lebanon, warning them to leave their homes immediately. Smoke was seen rising over the southern suburbs of Beirut. The areas targeted were densely populated zones long associated with Hezbollah's political and military infrastructure. The Israeli military said late on Sunday that its air force had established aerial superiority over Tehran and that strikes across the Iranian capital were targeting intelligence, security, and military command centers. However, potential Hezbollah involvement threatened to widen the conflict further. What had begun as a focused American-Israeli campaign against Iran was now threatening to engulf Lebanon for the second time in just over a year, pulling a country that was already economically broken and politically fragile back into the flames of war. The wider regional picture was equally alarming. Iran's Revolutionary Guard said they had struck 3 U.S. and U.K. oil tankers in the Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz and attacked military bases in Kuwait and Bahrain with drones and missiles. Shipping data showed hundreds of vessels, including oil and gas tankers, dropping anchor in nearby waters as traders anticipated sharp jumps in crude prices. The global economy was already beginning to feel the tremors. Energy markets were rattled. Airlines were rerouting flights. A drone struck the RAF Akrotiri base on the island of Cyprus, causing minor structural damage, though no official confirmation was immediately given. The war was no longer contained to any single front. U.S. President Donald Trump vowed to continue military strikes until objectives were achieved, stating the campaign was aimed at preventing Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons and eliminating threats to American allies. He also called on Iranians to rise up and take their country back. Inside Iran, some mourned Khamenei while others celebrated his death, exposing deep divisions within the country. The regime that had ruled with an iron fist for 4 decades was now fighting simultaneously on multiple fronts: foreign attack from above, domestic rebellion from within, and a chain of command severed at its very top. And Lebanon, a country of barely 6 million people, a country still trying to recover from a devastating 2024 war and decades of economic and political dysfunction, now finds itself once again on the edge of catastrophe. Not because its government chose this war, not because its people want it, but because a militant group on its territory, answering to a foreign power now fighting for its life, fired rockets across a border late on a Sunday night and changed everything. The ceasefire that had held for 15 months is gone. The quiet that people on both sides of the border had grown cautiously accustomed to is gone. What comes next? How deep Israel's campaign in Lebanon goes, how much of Hezbollah's rebuilt capability remains, and whether Lebanon survives another round is a question that no one in Beirut, Jerusalem, Washington, or Tehran can fully answer right now. What is certain is this: as of the early hours of March 2nd, 2026, the Northern Front is open again, and in a region already engulfed in its most dangerous moment in decades. That is a development the entire world should be watching very, very closely.